Hey everyone, thank you for joining me today. If you've been watching my streams, and even my most recent YouTube video, you'll know that I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV in the recent years, and we've got a brand new expansion dropping early next year, and with that, a ton of new lore and theories to go through. Not only is this expansion new, but it's also the start of the Godless Realm saga following the fall of Hydaelyn and Zodiark, which has left us with a brand new dilemma, the Solstice. With the two Elder Primals gone and without their influences keeping all the shards disjointed, the Solstice, a prophesied time of rejoining, is inevitable. But we may not have another world-ending scenario on our hands after all. What if the upcoming rejoining of all shards turned out to be a lot more quiet and peaceful? What if the shards don't slam back together in another disastrous calamity? What if instead, they're gently tethered back to the source through something that has been hiding in plain sight all along? I present to you the World Trees theory. And that is exactly what I want to talk about in today's video. World Trees acting like etheric conduits, bridging the source with its remaining reflections. The theory is built by a mix of fan theories, references to other Final Fantasy titles, and mythology and established lore found in the game. From Marasilia to Gridania to the Ninth Shard and even hints from the brand new Evercold teaser, let's start at the beginning. The only place the term World Tree actually appears on the source is in the description of the Warring Lanner's Mount, and it states, quote, "According to ancient legends of a tree-like people native to Marasilia, the Lanners bore the seeds of the World Tree across the seas, planting the verdant forests that dot the realms today." During the Allegan invasion in the Third Astral Era, those same people summoned Sephiroth, the Fiend, in the image of their shared faith. As a primal, his fight involves mechanics where plants simply spring to life, further tying him to the ancient tree people's faith, becoming the embodiment of the world tree that they so worship. In the image of the tree, he manipulates ambient ether to make things grow spontaneously. Trees, flowers, whole patches of forest bursting into life mid-fight, channeling the desperate will of the original world tree worshippers. So we have this idea of a colossal sacred tree as the source of all life in Marasilia, seeds carried far and wide, and a primal literally built around its etheric energy. That's our starting point for this theory. Final Fantasy XIV has previously tied the lore in with Norse mythology, primarily in Heavensward, but mostly in the draconic lore as a whole. Yggdrasil, a legendary ash tree that connects the 9 Nordic realms, feels like a blueprint for how a world tree would exist in this world. So, we have dragons named after Norse mythos, and the concept of a world tree, and with what little lore that we do have from Marasilia, we know that it is heavily inspired by the mythology, and continuing to borrow from Norse mythology as an inspiration would make sense. You see, trees aren't necessarily just scenery there, they can be massive conduits that channel balance and distribute aether across huge areas. They could keep the etheric energies flowing. Post-Endwalker, the barrier between shard and source is thinner than ever, but if we could link world trees as a conduit from each still existing shard back to the source, thus stabilizing and bridging the worlds, could this not harmonize and link back up the etheric sea between the source and its reflections? A network of world trees, much like that of the Norse tree Yggdrasil's roots, quietly linking the remaining fractured pieces of the world and letting aether and souls flow in a controlled, peaceful environment instead of crashing together. The strongest living candidate we have for a descendant of the original world tree is right here in the Black Shroud, the Guardian Tree, also called the Great One or the Elder Tree, and in the Endwalker tank job quest, we see its influence in action. I mean, it literally speaks directly to us through the seeds here, voicing its concerns and growing despair about the beast terrorizing the woods. In the Endwalker tank role quest, we see it in action. The blasphemy Gleipnir, named after the chain that bound Fenrir in Norse myth, once again subtly nodding at Norse mythology, shows up to poison the woods and attack the tree directly. Kan-E Sana leads a ritual using an ancient branch from the tree itself. She says something profound about the tree's influence on the world around us. Quote, "In summoning the Ermin Hedge, every ilm of these sacred lands will be imbued with the Great One's nourishing aether. The forest will be empowered to heal itself, to break free of Gleipnir's despair." Later in the quest, she describes the tree embracing the woods as a father would his child, but then calls on it to nurture them as a mother nurses her child to make them strong against sickness. That maternal/paternal etheric balance sound exactly like the kind of mechanisms that could scale up to the entire planet, with the Solstice quietly pulling shards closer and closer. Dawn Trail gave us even more quiet support for this idea through some very deliberate nods to Final Fantasy IX. In Living Memory, a Melala NPC mentions that their people once lived in a place called Conde Petit before the 9th calamity of lightning. Melalas, or Lalafell as we call them in Eorzea, being the closest substitute we have for a dwarven race in Final Fantasy XIV. In Final Fantasy IX, a town with the exact same name, Conde Petit, is a dwarven village that worships the Aether Tree, an ancient tree of life drawing strong parallels to the tree people of Mericidia. This tree was engineered by Garland as a massive soul conduit between Gaia and Terra. It filtered the lifestream, it managed reincarnation, and it kept the two worlds from fully colliding or destroying each other. Kind of sounds like the Solstice. Furthermore, Calyx's whole idea, to extract souls, preserving them in a digital living memory, refusing to let them fully return to the lifestream as his preferred way to survive the Solstice, mirrors the Aether Tree's function almost beat for beat. Even the arrow terminal's design feels like a technological echo of that ancient tree. We know the 9th shard, Calyx's shard, was ravaged by lightning, making it hostile and very difficult to navigate. Perhaps reaching the 9th world tree was simply impossible for Calyx in his endless state, forcing him to create an artificial version instead, with living memory. But with the sources still fully intact, perhaps the solution is much less digital. And then there's the Evercold teaser itself. The colossal frozen structure in the wasteland, looking not unlike a tree encased in ice. We see an aura girl oracle-like praying in front of it. The narration talks about a once verdant world where majestic trees stood sentinel over lands without end, followed by an eternal freeze. In Norse mythology, there's a concept called Fimbulwinter, a harsh 3-year-long catastrophic winter that precurses the apocalypse, Ragnarok. Much like the Solstice, Ragnarok is meant to destroy all life and let the cycle of life start anew. Could the story of Evercold focus around a dormant or corrupted world tree? I don't know, but it's hard to shake the references, feeling consistent with what we know of the game's lore and laws. So how does all of this actually solve the Solstice problem? Without Hydaelyn and Zodiark, the shards are drifting towards the source. Unchecked, that means catastrophe, the end of all life, and into the cycle before it starts again. But would a network of powerful world trees change that script? Could their proposed Aether-conducive properties create a living root network and bridge the shards? We already know that once a piece of another shard is attached to the source, its properties change. Look at how everything under the dome in Heritage Found stabilized once the dome was breached by the Warrior of Light. The difference in the speed of time stopped and synced to the source as the two entities became one. Those very same seeds that the Lanners scattered centuries ago could be reactivated. The Scions, maybe with help from the mysterious Winterers, could travel between realms to awaken or reconnect these trees. Aether and souls flow gradually and harmoniously. No apocalypse, just gentle reunion. It kinda just feels like that third way that Final Fantasy really loves to do. Building on everything we've already learned instead of throwing it away. And that's sort of where my head is at with Evercold right now. A peaceful rejoining guided by the same world trees that have been quietly shaping the world since the Third Astral Era. It's not flashy, but it feels right for the story that Square has been trying to tell us for years. A story about balance and healing rather than destruction. About finding harmony in the fragments that we've been left with. And with that, we're at the end of today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I did nerding out over the Eorzean encyclopedia, fan theories on Reddit, in-game lore, and apparently Norse mythology and everything in between. I'm really excited to see what Square comes up with for Evercold, and this is just one theory out of God knows how many. What do you think Evercold has in store for us? Did I get something wrong in the video? Feel free to leave a comment to let me know. And if nothing else, I hope to see you out there again in another video or in Eorzea. Thank you for watching.